Hola, soy el pastor Enrique Bremer, pastor de Centro Cristiano Vida Abundante en Parral, Chihuahua, y estoy aquí con un gusto enorme con mi amigo Don Steiner, y queremos hablar acerca de la educación, de la formación de hijos, una tarea tan importante, de vida o muerte realmente. Vamos a estar haciendo esta entrevista, esta conversación en inglés, pero vamos a ver cómo le hacemos para traducirla, y quiero que le prestes mucha atención y quiero que evalúes tu propio sentir, tu forma de pensar y tu proceder a la medida que vas escuchando, porque creo que vas a recibir respuestas que son accesibles a ti, y eso va a cambiar lo que tú haces con tus hijos, y eso les va a cambiar la vida a ellos. Así que, Don, welcome.
Thank you.
It's so
Great
good to
be
have
here.
you here. Yeah. Well, Don, you are a father. You have, I know your two boys. Well, they're not boys anymore, they're men.
Right.
And they both have kids. Mm-hmm. You have 6 grandchildren by them.
Right.
4 by Mike and 2 by Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
And you, every time I see you guys together, whether it be live or whether it be via pictures, your family works.
Right.
Your family, you guys enjoy each other.
We do. We love each other. I mean, and that's just from spending time. You know, our children trust us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part of a relationship. I think with any relationship, you have to trust. There has to be trust there.
Well, relationships are built on trust. So let's start off in that point. How do you build trust with your children?
Wow. Well, I think it starts from the time they're born.
Okay.
It has to go all the way back. Even though I realize that some people might be watching this video and their kids are older and they're trying to backtrack, trying to, catch up, if you will. But it all comes down from just spending time with them when they're young, when they're growing up, being involved in what they're involved in. Mm-hmm. I remember when our boys were very young, I had a cleaning service, and it was the early days of our cleaning service. We had it for almost 30 years. And so in the early days, you're doing all the work yourself until you're building it up.
You were the cleaning service.
Yeah, I was the cleaning service. And then we also had a full-time ministry that we did during the day. So during the day, I was in there, and then at night I was cleaning. So there's not a lot of time to be home. And María Elena homeschooled. And so I would come home from the day ministry, the outreach center that we had, knowing that I have to go to work at that night, and I needed to be out there by 6:37 or so. So I'd come home, and on the way home, I'm tired. I'm working every day. I psyched myself up, saying, my boys are going to be excited to see me. My boys are going to jump on me. My boys are going to want to wrestle and play and be with you, and you have to be there for them. And I would tell myself that on the way home. Mm-hmm. How many dads come home tired from a day's work or tired from something, and they don't want anything to do with their family or anything?
Right.
They're beat up, they're worn out, and they just don't want anybody to mess with them. Just stay away from me. Well, you do that once, and then you do it twice, and then it's a habit. And then it's what you always do. And then the child just says, Dad doesn't want anything to do with me.
Yeah.
Dad doesn't want to be around me. Dad doesn't want to connect with me. And it doesn't take but a couple years of just continually not connecting with your children, and your children don't want to connect with you anymore. Yeah. And so I think it's very important, especially in those very early years from 0 to 12. Those years are very formative in a child. And that's the time when, especially 0 to 5 and 6, they'll still kiss you, and even maybe 7 and 8, they still will, maybe even up to 12 if they're really used to it. You know, they'll still hug you in public. They'll still give you a kiss. They'll still say, I love you. You know, those are the years that you want to spend the most time with them, because that's when you build the trust for the other years.
I've heard say that love is spelled T-I-M-E.
That's correct. I mean, they don't know it any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try and buy gifts and give them things and stuff, and that doesn't translate to anything but give me more, give me more.
Right, but it doesn't form a relationship of any kind.
Not at all. And that time is in everything that they do.
Okay, now within that time and that interaction with them, I think that one important element is listening. You've mentioned that you're involved in what they do, so that, I believe, includes listening. Tell me a little bit about listening to a child or listening to an adolescent.
Well, I think the first thing that you need to do is find out what their interests are.
Okay.
Because they'll want to talk about what they like. And if you don't know what they like, or you don't like what they like, it's very hard to have a conversation with somebody when they're talking about something you don't like or have any interest in, or want anything to do with. And a child will have interest in things that are not interesting to adults.
Sure.
And so I think the most important thing is to know your children. Find out what they like, and they're all going to be different. Raised in the same home. My oldest son was a book reader. So all he did was read books. My youngest son, all he wanted to do was play music. Completely two different things. He didn't even want to read, my younger son didn't even want to read the music, the sheet music. He didn't want anything to do with reading anything. He just wanted to play his music. And he could listen to somebody play something on just about any instrument and sit down and mimic them and play it after them. Where my other son didn't really want to play any instruments, but he read every book he could get his hands on. And when, time came around for his birthday or something, all he wanted was a stack of books. I remember one year I bought him a stack of books, and each book was this thick. It was some series of books, and there were 5 books in it. Within a week or two, he was already through the first 2 or 3 books, and within a month he'd read them all. And I'm going, where do you have time to do that? But he's just that kind of a reader. He just wanted to engage. So then with my younger son in music, I had to talk about music. Let's talk about that guitar. Let's talk about this. I remember one time I bought an old house, and it was an estate, so there were still things in the house where the people had passed, and the family just wanted to sell everything. Right. So I bought the whole estate. And we went in there, and there was music instruments in there, old music instruments, old guitars, old amplifiers.
So that was like a treasure trove for Timothy, wasn't it?
Timothy just lit up. Dad, look at this stuff. And we went in there, and he took them apart. He cleaned them up. One of them he completely sanded down, which he regrets now, because he sanded down this antique guitar. But he didn't know. But I helped him. I jumped in there with him and bought him the stuff he wanted and needed for the things that he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Michael wanted to read the books. So I had to try and let him tell me, what are the books about? Because I sure wasn't going to read them all. What are the books about, son? What's that? And then he begins to tell you all these exciting things that are happening in the book. And you pick up on that, and you ask more questions about that, and you just let him talk.
Mm-hmm. Now, I remember experiences like that with my kids, because I remember once, I suppose this would be one of the last ones when my youngest was an adolescent, and I find that we're not talking, and we would sit, we'd eat, and we have a very talkative family, and when we sat around the table, boy, that was a loud table, but he was the youngest, and the others were off into all sorts of activities, and we weren't talking. There was just an awkward type of silence there. And one day, I walk into the family room, and he's watching a tennis match. And I really like tennis. And so I sat down with him. And the players were awesome, and he was all excited. And we just got into the tennis. And watching tennis matches became our connection, because he loved it, and so that totally changed the way that we related. And you would think, well, this isn't a very spiritual thing or a very loving, emotional thing, but it was what he liked, and so it helped us.
Well, I found if you try and get all spiritual with your children and talk about religion and God all the time, you're going to isolate them, because that, even though God is in every part of our life all the time, it doesn't mean that that's what we talk about all the time. And so there's just so many other things of life that go on, especially as they're growing. And as they begin to have other friends, it was very important for us to know their friends.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't hang out with people we didn't know.
Right.
And if one of them would come home with or talk about a friend that we didn't know, we got to know them. And there was.
Did you have them invite their friends over?
We had them invite their friends over. The sad part is we didn't let them do sleepovers, because we didn't know people unless we knew the people. The friends had to come over. The good thing is we lived in a house that was high recreation. There was a lot of things to do. So the kids liked to come over to the house.
Yeah.
And so, we connected with all of their friends. We learned who they were. And, even their friends now that are grown, we're still friends with. I mean, we still connect with them, see them on Facebook, say hi to them. So there's still a connection with their friends.
Okay, now, so time and attention, and you want to know your kids, you want to know who they are. And this is, I think, is something that's so important, because it's so common that we'll just see kids as a duty to be, to be fulfilled, but not as people. These are persons. They've got God's image in them. They have a personality. They're smart. They have a lot of interests, and so the idea of getting to know your child is wow. One
thing that happens as kids are growing up and families get busy, and dad's got a business, dad's got a job, mom's working, whatever. Everybody's busy. Everybody's doing their thing. We grow apart, and I think that one of the challenges that I've seen is that kids start doing other things that are disagreeable to us, and then it begins to build a barrier there. And I think that the best way to keep from building those kind of barriers is to not let there be that time that allows there to be that barrier. You have to continue always being with your son or your daughter on a regular basis, and inquiring to them of what's going on in their life. Because when they start doing things that they don't want you to know about, they're not going to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing. When they do stuff that they don't want you to know,
right?
That's never good. And
they are going to do that every now and then. Sometimes that's going to happen. If you have this real close relationship and you maintain it, the likelihood of that is far less. It's when you don't have that relationship.
My wife always says about my kids that they just could not lie. They were terrible liars.
Right.
And so they would want to hide something, but the fellowship was there, and we always really enjoyed ourselves. My home is a home where you have a lot of laughter, and so they just couldn't keep a secret.
Right.
And so that was really good.
And that comes with the same with relationship. You know your kids.
Yeah.
So you can look them in the eye and say, no, that's not true. I was being interviewed in a government agency, and the person interviewing me was an expert in lie detection and things like that, and they were asking some very direct questions because they noticed how many different countries we'd traveled to. And they were very curious why I've been in 100 countries in the world. They've asked, why are you traveling all over the world? And then he asked me a very direct question: have you ever been kicked out of a country? And he asked it nonchalantly, but he was staring right at me. And I looked right back at him. I looked him straight in the eye and I said, never. And it was a direct, absolute response. And I could see his response was, I believe you.
Wow.
Because he knew that connection.
Right.
So it's important that you have that connection with your kids. You know what they're saying. You know you look them in the eye and you can tell exactly what they're saying, and you're with them. Another thing is as they're growing up, I was at a store the other day and I saw a lady came in with a boy that was about 10 years old. And he was just all boy, clean cut, really sharp dressed, good looking young boy, but he was all boy. And mom was off on the counter working, and he was doing cartwheels, in the store.
Being a boy.
He was just being a boy. And I'm just sitting there watching the whole thing. And she turns around and looks at him and starts yelling at him and grabs him and pulls him over and tells him to stand next to her. And then she acts mad at him. She has this feeling of anger. And I'm thinking, he's a boy. He's doing what boys do.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't have to be angry. You don't have to display that kind of thing. You can say, hey guys, we're in a public place, or just come over here and stand next to me. But she just displayed that anger. And then I saw, if he would have been a dog with pointy ears, his ears would have gone, woo, just like that. I mean, his whole spirit just left him.
Sure.
When he felt like his mom now is angry at him for doing what? For being a boy.
Now, that mom was trying to correct something that for some reason she thought was inappropriate. And that's something parents will do. And obviously she was exaggerating there because she didn't need to do it that way. But a dad, a mom, you have to form your kids. You have to calibrate them, if you will. You have to train them up in things that they don't necessarily want to do. We call it discipline, we call it training. Tell us a little bit about how you keep that relationship when you have those tense moments when you're having a child do the homework that he doesn't want to do or do the chore that he doesn't want to do.
I get that because, that's those times when my flesh gets in the way because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And it's time for me to, just say, okay, we're going to do it my way now. But I have to stop and ask myself, wait a minute. I brought this child into the world because I loved him and I loved his mother and he's my child. And I have to, in every part of his life, in every action he does, I'm a part of it, but I'm a part of it because of that love, because I love him so much. And I think sometimes parents forget that they love their children because they just get too angry at them and they just let themselves, get out of control. Now, who hasn't been out of control? Sure. I was very disciplined in their discipline. I was raised in a home where a spanking meant if you get close enough to dad, you're going to get hit. And so
repeat that, please.
So a spanking, like I was supposed to get disciplined. For my father was if you're close enough, if you're with arm's reach to me, I'm going to beat you. Oh. And so I'm going to hit you. Spanking wasn't on the rear; it was anywhere he could find to get a hit in. Oh. And so I just made sure I stayed far enough away from him when he was mad. And I decided that when I disciplined my children, there was a standard, there was a rule. So it doesn't matter what you did. All spankings are 2 swats. You're going to get 2 spots. You're not going to get 5 because I'm mad today, or 10, or I'm not going to be yelling and screaming at you while I'm doing it, or I'm not going to tell you get a spanking and then forget about it later and just not and blow it off so that there's no discipline there at all. And so it was a discipline thing, and it takes time to do that. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot more time than to just grab them and spank them and let them go. Yeah. You tell them what you're doing. You tell them why. You see that they understand. You make sure they understand why they're being disciplined. It's 2 swats. Then they sit down with you and they understand what went. You love them and you're okay and you move on. Yeah. And so you have to have that same mentality a disciplined mentality in everything they do. And when you feel like you're getting ready to yell at them or getting ready to be angry, you have to remind yourself, I love you, and I brought you into this world. Mm-hmm. And some people will say, well, I brought him into the world and I'm going to take him out too. You know, that's not the concept here. It's that your job in bringing them into the world is to train them up. Mm-hmm. And the Bible says, train them up in the way that they should go. And that means that if he sees me control my temper, control my anger, not discipline in anger, and control myself, then he'll grow up being that, or she will grow up being that kind of a person.
I got a couple of other questions that I think are really important. There's such a high rate of divorce nowadays. I mean, in the state of Chihuahua, we are way over 50%, and there's such a large amount of couples that never even marry. And you know, when couples get together and they don't marry, that's a surefire guarantee that they're going to split up a little down, you know, further down the line. So you got all these kids that are dealing with broken marriages. How does the parents' relationship between dad and mom, what effect does that have on the kids?
Well, it has an enormous effect on the kids. Because both mom and dad are their flesh and blood. It's blood.
Yeah.
And blood's thicker than water, no matter what. We had an outreach center for years in the United States, and we worked with the Department of Justice, the department that took kids away from people or didn't, you know, the humanities department, and I saw it all the time. A child, no matter what his parents are doing to him, doesn't want to leave the arms of his mom, even though she's, you know, sleeping with 10 men in the bed. He has nothing here. She's yelling and screaming at him all the time. He still doesn't want to leave mom.
She's his flesh.
Yeah, she's flesh. And so when those two that have become one, as the Bible talks about, they go apart. They're not separating each other. They're splitting flesh apart inside their children. Mm-hmm. And that flesh hurts and it burns and it doesn't matter. And then unfortunately, most divorces are mean and the people are angry, and that split causes a hatred between the two. And so mom has nothing good to say about dad, and dad has nothing good to say about mom. But what the parents don't know when they're doing this is they're talking about his flesh or her flesh, their children's flesh. This is their children's flesh because their children are still blood connected to both. And the dad would go, well, you know, your mom this, well, you know, she's his ex now and was his wife, but that child, it's his mother. Yeah. It's his father. And so I would caution parents that get a divorce, number one, do everything you can to not get a divorce. And if you're unmarried and together, you're just leaving the door open for one of you to leave. Get married, make a covenant with each other. And then in that covenant, stick with it. Be a person of honor, be a person of your word. And that's the thing about marriage. Are you a person of your word? Yeah. You gave them your word, but now you're breaking that word. Well, you don't know what they did to me. You don't know what they did. And I get it. You know, adultery and all these other things that are out there. And I know how bad they hurt. I've seen women find out their husband's cheating on them and what it does to them. I've seen it just kind of completely tear them down. Mm-hmm. So I understand that. But what parents need to understand is that child is the flesh of both of you.
Yeah. Wow. You know, I've seen how a child's universe shatters when his parents split. I hadn't really thought about the fact that they are linked. I mean, genetically, their flesh, their blood. I mean, they can never unlink themselves from either parent.
Right. And it doesn't matter. And And unfortunately, parents try and do that.
Yeah.
Stay away from your dad. Don't go to your dad. He's terrible. He's bad. But you're still talking about his flesh.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes it works, and kids just, because the one or the other parent is so malicious, so bad, the child doesn't even want to be around him.
Yeah. But even so, he still can't. He can't completely separate himself in his heart from that evil man because he is still his father. There is that flesh connection there.
That's correct.
That is incredible, and so important, for us to stop and understand that what we do with our spouse has such an effect on our kids. They are watching us all the time. I've got one last question that I want to get into. You mentioned God is in every part of our lives, yet we don't talk about God all day long in every breath that we take, and I understand that. But there are times, and this is a big part of your life, when you train your kids up in the ways of God. Tell us about that.
Well, a parent needs to live their life being full of God. Mm-hmm. And so everything I do is God. Everything I do, I'm full of God. I don't cuss, I don't smoke, I don't do all these things that I don't lie, I don't cheat. My sons knew in my business, they knew that I didn't cheat. People asked me to do something that's wrong in my business, and my boys watched me. They knew I wouldn't do something that wasn't right, that wasn't ethical. I wouldn't cheat. I wouldn't charge more over here and give some over here. I wouldn't do any of that. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the God that's in me. I'm not preaching Jesus while I'm doing that. It's just what Jesus would do. It's just the life of Jesus that's in me that is showing out of me in everything that I do. Mm-hmm. And every move that I make, and even the way I treat my wife in front of them. I don't yell and scream at her in front of them, even though there's times that we've clashed. It's better to just walk away, especially if your children are present.
Sure.
Walk away and cool down. We all have those times. Walk away, cool down, let things settle down, and then come back at a time when it's a more opportune time to communicate with your spouse.
Yeah. So they have to see it before they hear it from you. If you come and preach at them, take them to church, maybe read a Bible verse to get them to do something, that's not going to work real well if they're not seeing it in you before that.
Well, if you're training up a child, it's a way of life. Mm-hmm. You're always taking them to church. You're never preaching to them. You're living a life to them. You're talking to them about the Bible. We sat down and read the Bible with our children all the time. We read a devotional every night with our children, and then we read the scriptures through of the devotional, and we talked about that. It was a nightly thing that we did. We prayed with them in the morning before they left the house, before we dropped them off at school. We prayed with them. So that was just part of their life. So we didn't have to introduce preaching to them, or say, okay, I'm going to take you to church now. I mean, you don't take somebody to church for a long period of time, and then something happens, and now you're taking them to church. That's like punishment.
Yeah.
We don't want punishment. We want them to enjoy that life. We want them to know that this is just part of our life. This is what we do.
And it's such a good life.
It's a wonderful life.
Yeah.
And it flows. And I believe church helps marriages. I mean, if you get involved in church, get involved in short-term groups or home groups or short-term mission trips and things like that, and involve your family in it, it's a building time. It's amazing what it will do for your family.
One of the things as a pastor that we had to face very early on was the fact that, ministry is demanding, and yet we just had this sense that we didn't have to have a sort of enmity between our children and ministry. And so one of the things that I did was travel a lot to conferences and retreats and stuff like that. And so my wife and I decided to step out in faith and buy a big vehicle that would fit all of us And because we were going to take our kids with us every time. And so we crisscrossed the country with our kids and having a great time as we traveled. But it was very important for us that they never felt that they were competing with another aspect of our lives. They were always part of it all.
Right.
And so you're right. It's not me preaching at them. This is how we live.
Yeah, and if you've got your own business or something, take your kids to work with you.
Sure.
You know, take them up there and let them be part of the business. Let them feel like this is part of them too. I mean, why not? You know, it's they're part of the family.
Yeah. So one last thing, I guess. What do you do with your kids when you make a mistake? We all make mistakes. We all fail in whatever things, small or large. What do you do with your kids when that happens?
Well, to me, that falls under the category of transparency. Okay. And transparency is a big deal in a marriage. So I'm transparent. My wife knows everywhere I go. Well, she can track me on my phone. I never shut it off so she can't see where I am. It's transparency. Our passwords on our phone are the same. So anytime I want to get into her phone, I can get into it. She can get into my phone. She can search my history for anything. It's called transparency. And transparency goes as far as I made a mistake and I'm transparent about it. I want to tell you about it. I did wrong here. I even told a lie. I even made a mistake over here, or I shouldn't have done that. I did this, but I shouldn't have done it. It was wrong. Man, that is huge for a kid. That makes a kid stand up and cheer.
Yeah.
My dad said he was wrong. Wow. I mean, that's almost like hitting a home run or something, you know? They just feel like I can trust him.
Yeah.
You know, or my mom said she's sorry. My mom yelled at me the other day and she came back and said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
For kids.
But it's all about transparency. And the more you're transparent with your children, the more they'll be transparent with you. That if they learn transparency growing up, they'll be a transparent kid.
Yeah. And you know, it's so much easier to do life transparently because you don't have to make up stories.
Right.
You don't have to, you know, manipulate things. You are who you are, you know.
Yeah, oh, what did I say about that situation? Yeah. I don't remember because it was a lie. No, you just tell the truth.
Yeah. Even with business, you know, we made a decision a long time ago that we were going to do business and we were going to do it right and straight and transparent. So, you know, sometimes somebody says, well, what if we get an audit? Well, come on in. We've got nothing to hide.
Right.
And so, you know, I'll sleep well that night. And matter of fact, I got a couple of friends that live that way. And the auditor came and found nothing after weeks of work.
Yeah.
And he really felt bad because he was going back to his office and he had nothing to show for it, you know. So this friend of mine gave him a gift, you know. He just a tip, if you will.
Yeah.
He couldn't. Everything was right. Everything was wrong. Everything was done the way it was supposed to be done. And so he just, you know, had mercy on him and gave him something for his efforts.
Right.
So, wow. Well, like I said, I know your boys, and not as well as I'd like to because they're kind of far away, but they're wonderful boys.
You know what I love to watch in my boys, and any parent, you're doing the same thing with your children too, is watching how they treat their wives. I mean, it's just amazing that they are treating their wives with respect and honor and, you know, dignity. They value their wives. Both of my daughter-in-laws are stay-at-home moms, so they're raising their children. And one of my daughter-in-laws has a master's degree in business administration. She's got a psychology degree. Before she had a child, after she got married and got her degree, she was working in the psychology industry, and she has to build 1,500 hours of in-work training in order to take the state exam to become a psychologist. And she was almost more than halfway there, and she had her first baby. And my wife watched the baby while she continued to work, and 2 months of that, she came home one day and she said, I am not doing this. I'm going to raise my own children. And she left all those hours. She was almost there. She left all those hours behind. And if you don't keep going, they go away.
Yeah.
And she knew they were going to go away. And now it's 6 years later, they've all gone away. If she wants to get her psychology degree, she has to go back.
Start all over.
But she's a mom.
Yeah.
She's a mom. That's her job. She's a mom, and she loves it, and she does great at it.
I've never seen anybody, man or woman, regret having invested themselves into their children.
Right.
No matter what it cost them, and like your daughter-in-law, it cost her dearly. But I've never seen any one of them regret having done it.
Yeah.
Well, kids, I mean, they are, Scripture says they're our inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are looking for money, but no, what God gives you is kids. And we want to focus and really make a conscious effort and a continuous effort to do it right.
María Elena and I's only regret was that we didn't have more. We had 2. We should have had 4, or 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because they're just wonderful.
They are. I mean, having 4 is a handful.
Sure.
You know, but we don't regret having any one of them.
Yeah.
Don, you've got all these parents that are listening and trying to learn and grow, and the culture around them doesn't help. Their own past doesn't help. And I would love for you to give them a word and then to pray for them, because their culture might not help and their past might not help, but the Lord will help.
I think the biggest thing that I would say to parents is keep your conscience clean in your relationship. Don't do things that you know you shouldn't do. And the Bible talks about that, is that we crucify our flesh. It actually says we take our flesh and we put it on the cross. We crucify it with Christ. And there's so many scriptures in the Bible that talk about our job after salvation. Salvation comes and we've been made right with Christ, but then we have to walk out that path. And that path is an everyday path. It's a path that every day I have to say no to my flesh. Every day I have to say, don't go there, don't do that. Every day I have to walk that out. And therefore, keeping my conscience clean. Because once our conscience gets dirty, we begin to defend it in ourselves, and that brings out the anger. And I think that's a lot of things in men. The anger gets so big is because their conscience is so filled up with things that they're doing and things they're thinking that they're not talking about, and it just brings anger.
Yeah.
So keep this conscience, I call it a conscience dump, man. Just make sure that anything you're thinking or you're giving it to God, you're releasing it, you're letting it go, you're confessing it, you're being transparent, and it makes life easier.
Yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. One thing is when you mess with your conscience, you're going to start hiding.
Yeah.
And when you hide, you can't be transparent anymore.
Right.
And so that just ruins your relationships.
It does.
So there's a high price to be paid for doing stuff that you should not do. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's never worth it.
Right.
You might be tempted momentarily, and it just looks so attractive at that moment, but it's going to cost you so much. And it does every time. It's unavoidable. So yeah, keep your conscience clean and stay together, man. Pray for us, Don. Pray for the parents. Father,
I lift up parents that are watching this video. Parents that love you, Lord, that are in a covenant with each other, that have walked together, and even single parents that have already gone through a divorce and are raising children singly. Father, I lift them up to you. God, your word says that your grace is sufficient for us.
Yes.
that your grace covers us. And so, Father, I ask for that grace to flow out through these cameras, flow out. Let them receive that right now as they're there. Let them feel your love. Let them feel your compassion. Let them feel the strength that only comes from knowing you and having a relationship with you. And Father, I thank you that in those times where they're already separated, that you just give them the strength to stand and the strength to fight and the understanding how to love a spouse that's already left, and how to be calm and in those situations with their children. But then the ones that are still together, Father, let them understand that covenant is love. That covenant is a binding commitment that they made, and it's worth fighting for. It's worth standing for. And let them understand that they had these children for a reason, because they loved them. Yeah. And let that love continue on them all the days of their life, all the ages of their children, from the time they're young until the time they're old. That love will always be there. And we thank you for it, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. In your name,
Jesus'
name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. No existe nada en este mundo, en esta vida, los 60, 80, 90 años que nos toquen en esta vida, no hay nada más importante, nada más valioso que las personas que te rodean. Tu familia en la carne, tus hermanos en la fe. Tu relación con ellos es precisamente de donde viene la vida. Tu fuerza, tu alegría, todo cambia a través de las relaciones, la que tienes con Dios, la que tienes con tu prójimo, sea el miembro de tu familia, tu pareja, tu hijo, tus padres, o sean los hermanos en la fe en tu iglesia. Cuida tus relaciones, invierte en ellas y tú vas a cosechar muchísimo más de lo que tú siembres. Y créeme que nunca te vas a arrepentir de haber sacrificado otras cosas a favor de estas relaciones en las cuales Dios te ha puesto. Que Dios te bendiga al caminar junto con Dios, con tu familia y con la familia de la fe.